All right, so we're now recording. Hopefully it's just, and so today I want to spend the first little bit doing some admin stuff, just to make sure we can all navigate through the course. And then we'll kind of start going over some definitions and stuff, basically chapter 1. So that's kind of my goal for week 1. We'll see how far we get. As always, interrupt me if you have questions. So when you log in, hopefully this is what your Brightspace looks like, or at least very similar, because I changed mine to learner mode. Sorry about that. So you'll log into our course and there'll be announcements, right? And I will post weekly announcements, and this is where I'll usually post the Zoom recording after the lecture. So if you cannot make it, this is where you'll come and it'll have a link to the Zoom session. So as of right now, our Zooms are every Tuesday from 1 to 2:30. They are optional, so you don't lose points for not attending. However, if you do not attend the Zoom, please email me after you've watched the Zoom, 1, to make sure that you're keeping with the course, and 2, for attendance purposes, okay? So that's how we'll kind of take attendance. It'll be based off either attending the Zoom session or emailing. We'll keep this time for a few weeks to see how many participants, and then maybe I'll do another survey to see if there is another time that works for more people, so we can try to get more people in the class. And if no one really seems interested, then we'll just keep it at this time. For this first week, there is a quiz. So most of you have already done it. There's unlimited attempts. So that will show up here if you've not done it yet. And you can see I haven't done it because I'm not doing the quiz. But this quiz is important. It must be completed by Friday, because this is how I am taking attendance for week 1. If you do not complete the quiz by Friday, then I will have to mark you as a no-show, and then you will automatically get dropped from the class. So it is extremely important that you take this quiz. It's only worth 10 points, and you can do it multiple times. When you take it, it's going to show you, if you get everything right, it's going to show you 8 out of 10, because I have to go grade the feedback question, which as long as you make a comment, you get full credit. And then that's when you'll see your grade published. So just click on that and it takes you right to your grades. So here we have our calendar. You can see we don't have anything due for a while. I don't know why homework 1 is not showing up. Oh, there it is. I don't know why homework 2 is saying due before homework 1. So I'll figure out where the discrepancy is there. But this is kind of where our assignments are. We'll go into the syllabus where they are correct, but I'll see what's the issue with the calendar here when I go back into it. So kind of the key pieces of Brightspace that I will use. If you go under content, there's where you can see the syllabus, right? And there is an issue on the syllabus if you've already printed it. Someone pointed out I had the wrong Zoom time on the syllabus. It was actually my fall Zoom time. So I've edited it on this syllabus. Afterwards, I will go and update the attachment and fix that, because our Zoom session is, like I said, Tuesdays 1 to 2:30 as of right now. So there's the syllabus. You can please read over it. Wow, so now why is this saying Wednesdays? Oh, I'll fix that. I thought I fixed it and I have the wrong day on here. So we'll got to go back and fix it again. So a second mistake. Grading scale. This is the default CM grading scale. I just used the one that the CM is using. Class attendance and participation. That's basically the little quiz right here. Homeworks, test, and then the project into 3 parts. All right, so we'll talk more about these assignments here in a minute. And then here is kind of the overview for our class. I broke it down by weeks since we're, Zooming and online. So this first week will be chapter 1, which is a lot of definitions. So we'll kind of talk through those. And then you can kind of see the breakdown, and you can see where the homeworks are due. So homework 1 is due. So that's probably a typo on the calendar. It should say homework 1 due, start homework 2 is due the week of February 8th to the 14th. And then your project calculations. And you can see, besides the first week, I try to do 1, maybe 2 sections a week. Like if we met 2 weeks in class, then it would be, each 1 section per lesson kind of thing. So it takes us through all the way to the end of the semester, and the semester ends May 3rd. So there's kind of the outline that we'll try to stick to as best as we can. And then I have created modules. So we have a resource module where I post my lectures notes on OneNote. I sent an email yesterday with the link. If it's not working, please let me know, but I believe it is. There is also a link here to my YouTube channel where I post videos. These are different than the Zoom lectures. These are great for anyone that's struggling with some of the Excel we'll do or wants a deeper understanding because they're a little bit longer than the once a week, hour and a half. So I would highly encourage you to go watch those for extra help. Here is, again, our Zoom meeting external link, which is also under the communications tab. And then MyLab Master and Course Home. This is for anyone that wants to use the Pearson software. The Pearson software is optional. It is completely up to you, and we'll talk more about that here in a minute. You have to have a code that you have to purchase. If you bought your book through the bookstore, it comes with it. You can also just buy it through Pearson's site for a little bit cheaper than the bookstore. The only issue is then you can't use your financial aid. So if you're using financial aid, you have to buy it from the bookstore. If you're paying for yourself, then I'd recommend just buying it through the Pearson site. It'll be a little bit cheaper. Or if you don't want to use the software and you just want to use the book and you have a book from a friend, then don't worry about the software. A lot of you are emailing me saying that you need the course ID. We do not use course IDs anymore because they are linked to Brightspace. So you must access Pearson by going through your Brightspace. So you log into Pearson, go here to resources, click on the Math Lab, and that's when you'll create your account. And if you already have one, just log into your old Pearson account and it will automatically link your two accounts together. Please email me if you're having difficulty so I can assist you with that. Block 1 is where we're at. So again, here is the welcome quiz. And so this is where I say it has to be done by Friday by 5 p.m. or you may receive a no-show and get dropped from the course. We have optional discussions. There are no graded discussions for this class, but I do have a section where you can post discussions in case you want to ask questions to each other. And this may be better than emailing even me, because if you email me, it just depends how often I check my email. I do check it on a daily basis. But if you post it here and another student's on, they might be able to answer your question as well while you're doing the work. So this is probably a better place to ask questions. But if you prefer email, then that's fine. Just know I will get to it whenever I open my email. And since most of you do your schoolwork at night, I don't stay up late because I'm not a college student anymore. So you won't be getting my emails till the next day. So if you want instant help, I would encourage you to use this, and hopefully a classmate will also answer the question. So here's where we come to the homework piece, which can be confusing at first when students first look at my courses. I give you options. And so some students like this, many don't. They just want to know what I want from them. So these are options. So if you want to do the problems out of the book, then click on Homework 1 Book Problems, and it will open a document, hopefully. And you can see Homework Doc 1 and Homework XL because there's a little Excel file I created to do Homework 1. So then you can just click on that and it downloads. And I think I have to reshare when this pops up because you won't see it. Close. So I'll bring up my thing, new share, Word document. All right, so everyone can see my Word document. Oh, yes?
Yes.
Thank you. I just can't ever tell what we can see. All right, so you can see, so a couple questions here, a couple out of the book. So I'll give you a page number, depending on which edition, right? So if you have an old edition, a 5th edition, you can see that's what's in parentheses. If you have the new 6th edition, then those are the page numbers. And so there's the problems out of the book. And then there's also a couple problems that I've created myself, right? And so you can see, use the Excel file to answer the rest of these questions. So that's what you do if you do not want to use the MyLab software. You go here, answer the questions, and then you're going to upload those through assignments on Brightspace. So I didn't mean to hit stop share. Share screen. Let's go back to Brightspace. If you are going to use the software, then just hit the Homework 1 MyLab Statistics, and it will take you right into the problems. You just click on it once you have created your account. And if you haven't created your account, when you go to click on this, it's going to ask you to create your account. And then you just answer the questions here. Some tips about using Pearson. The question help is a great feature, right? You can click help me solve this, which will help you solve the problem. I prefer view an example because if you do help me solve this, it's going to help you solve your problem. It's going to give you a new problem to solve. If you click view an example, it'll give you an example similar to your problem that you can read. Then you can use that information to solve your problem and you don't have to do the problem once. You can click on the textbook if you need to read more about this kind of problem. StatCrunch is a statistical software, which I have some videos on the YouTube for that you may use if you choose to, not required. But if you like the software and you know how to use it, then you may use it. And then if you get stuck on the homework, I really want you to use the Ask My Instructor button. This will send me an email of the problem you're solving and will let me give you feedback on your problem instead of saying, hey, I'm stuck on problem 3. I have no idea what problem 3 is because the Pearson software shuffles the problems, right? So please, if you're doing Pearson and you need help, you click Ask My Instructor. If you're doing the book problems, then yes, you can easily say, hey, I'm stuck on problem 2, then I know exactly what problem 2 is, right? So those are kind of some cool help features that are here. And then you just go through and do the problems, give it an answer.
Question.
Answer.
Does it save as you go along? So I could do like one question today and go to question 11 tomorrow and then go to question.
Yep. It saves and you just continue. Just make sure you always hit save, right? Sometimes it might ask you I always say hit save to be safe, but yes, you can come back to it. Right, so if you did like I did and you got it wrong, you can just take the wrong answer and hit next question, or you can ask for similar question and redo it, right? So you can keep working these problems. So that's why some of my students prefer Pearson, because you get this extra help and instant feedback. However, some just don't like it. So my way to be fair is if you do the book problems, then get them submitted early. And then if you get something wrong, I'll give you feedback and you can fix it and resubmit it just like you do as in Pearson, right? So it takes a little bit of more effort to get the help by doing the book problems because you don't get the instant feedback that Pearson will give you. Instead, you got to wait till I email you back. But you can rework your homework problems even if you do book problems, just like Pearson allows you to. There is a due date, right? So I'm just going to say next question. I'll just take it wrong. And you can always go back and work it. So you can see I can go back to question 1 and then hit this similar question if I just want to go back to it later, right? There is a due date on the homework. And so you can see I hit save and you can see it's updated here already. So if you work on this after the due date, there's a 1% deduction for any question completed. So if you say you've gotten all the way to question 21 done and you do these 22 through 25 after the due date, you do not lose the points that you've already earned through 21. You lose a 1% deduction on problems 22 through 25, 1% per day off those problems from going past the due date. Now, the due date is not till, as you see, February 14th. So I agree. I think it was Jenny saying, hey, can I start on this now and work through these? Please do, right? And so another quick tip here. So like I'll go to question 10. How you kind of read this, the first number here.
Anything.
Oh, it's not showing when I do the pop-up.
Right, yeah, I can't see the problem.
Okay, thank you. New share. I always forget that it does that when it does the pop-up. All right, so, do we see the problem now?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. So when you open up the problem, a kind of advice if you are working on it, this first number tells you the chapter, right? So like this first week, we're gonna get through chapter 1. So if you're doing the homework this week and you get to a problem that says 2, you may do it. But if you get like, hey, I don't even know what this problem's asking, look at this first number. If it is something we haven't covered, it just means you're ahead of the class right now. And then so feel good about it. So the first number is the chapter. The second number is what section in the chapter it is. So this is section 2.1. And the third number is whatever homework problem I pulled out of the thing. So the third number really means nothing to you, right? But the first two tell you chapter, then section. So you can see this problem is out of section 2.1 in the book. So this is chapter 2, section 1. So that kind of helps you realize where you kind of can be on pace so you can get these problems done. And again, like I said, you can work them at your convenience. I know some students like a more structured class where I tell you this assignment is due every other day so that I keep you on track. We all have busy lives. We're all adults here. So I just give you a due date out in the future. that you just got to manage yourself and make sure that you stay on track. So create a planner, whatever you need, log into Brightspace, check the dates on the calendar, something. I would highly encourage you not to wait to the end. So there is 4 homework assignments. So let me go back to our table of contents. So in block 1, so each block is the breakdown of the assignments, right? So here is the block 1, and you can see there's more to do in block 1 because of the whole welcome quiz kind of thing, and everything else as the 3 things where it has just a discussion, then homework 1, book problem or homework problems, and then stat problems. So that's how we'll go progress through the modules. There is a project, and so here is a discussion for the project. And then here is our project prompt. Notice this project is one big project that we will work on throughout the semester. So it's broken down into parts to help you not keep you kind of on track. So there is a piece that is due February 21st, where you'll submit your Excel file and the introduction to your paper. And then later on in the course, you'll finish your paper and submit it as your final project, right? And so you can see the project paper is due April 30th, but I'm going to make sure everybody doesn't wait to April 29th to do it, because you're going to have to at least submit the first part of it by February 21st. And so if you click on the project prompt, here is what we have. So you will come up with a question, and I don't have any preference of what you do, all right? And so some students like the freedom of the projects, others want me to tell them exactly what to do. I will not do that. So don't waste your breath asking me, well, what do you want me to do? I don't care what you do, right? All I want you to do is find something that has quantitative data, which we'll talk about that today. This means numbers. You need to have some data set that has 50 points of numbers, right? I say pick something that's interesting to you. And so I get a lot of times that someone tells me they have nothing to interest them. And then my question back to you, if you tell me that, is then why are you in college? Because you're here for something. So if you have nothing to interest you, then get some data on what degree you're actually doing and see if that's something you actually want to do for the rest of your life, right? So come up with a question that answers data. And then you're going to use some Excel or StatCrunch to do some analysis. Don't worry, you don't know how to use that yet. I will show you. And so here's some websites that are very useful for finding data. Data.gov has a bunch of statistics, USA.gov/statistics, Gapminder. So these are just some sites. You can get data a lot of places. A lot of times I just say type your question in Google and we can find data. Do not wait till the night before this is due. This is the hardest part of the project, finding the data. Right, so I would recommend everybody start on this in the next 2 weeks. That way, if you are stuck, you can reach out to me and I will help you find data, because some people pick really good questions, but finding the data can be challenging. And if you wait till the night before it's due, you may not be able to easily find the data. So kind of some topics that just say like COVID, right? There's a ton of data out there about COVID. Crimes have been a big topic of late, so something to do with crimes, as more people attending college changed. So come up with a question that you can use numbers to analyze it. And I don't mind help you tweaking your question. And again, if you like sports is always a good topic to do, your degree, right? So to kind of think about that this first week, especially when we're going through chapter 1 and looking through definitions. So by February 21st, you need to submit your introduction paragraph as well as your Excel analysis. So you need to have requirement 3 done by February 21st. So requirement 3 in your intro will be, what is your statistical question? And why did you pick this topic? How was the data collected, right? Type of sampling, which is what we're going to talk about today. Do you have concerns? Was this an observational study or experiment? Again, chapter 1. Do you notice any outliers? Use the IQR to predict outliers, which is chapter 2. So you can see by the time we're done chapter 2, you can actually finish this requirement, and we'll be done chapter 2 by the end of January. So you'll have plenty of time to kind of do that little piece. And then you're going to have your data in Excel, and you're going to do these calculations. You're going to build a frequency distribution table with And you're going to build a histogram. That's chapter 2. And then you're going to find the mean, median, range, standard deviation of your data set, which is chapter 3. So think of this first piece of the project. That is basically how I test chapters 1 through 3. All right, so instead of doing a test, you're going to do analysis with real data. And then you will submit your Excel file and Word document through assignments in Brightspace. And that's how I'll grade it, and it's worth 75 points. So start this early, ask questions, and we shall be good. Then after February 21st, and we work out all these bugs, then you're going to write your 3 to 4 page paper of the analysis. So you'll take your introduction paragraph that you've already submitted, and you'll add to it all the rest of these things, which we will learn in chapters 6, 7, and 8. So it'll be a little bit of a break before you can get to the rest of your paper. That's why it's not due at the end of the semester. But you're going to build off your stuff that you submit the first time to create the rest of your paper. Right. And so this is what you'll talk about in your paper. Here's a formatting and stuff. I don't want calculations in your paper. I want you to talk. So read through this. At the end of the semester, if you present your project to the class as a bonus, you can earn additional points to your grade. So look over that, ask questions. Again, start on this sooner than later, because the last thing you want to do is run out of time. Now, Excel is something that I use a lot in my statistics class. It is not one of our learning outcomes. So you are not graded on it. So if you have troubles with Excel, just reach out to me. I don't expect you to be Excel experts. I'm going to show you what to do with Excel. You're not graded on Excel. So if it does something wrong, you're not going to lose points. It's never going to be on the test. But I like to use real problems to teach my statistics course. So we're going to use Excel to assist us with the calculations, because no one in the real world does any statistical analysis by hand. So I'm not going to teach you how to do statistics by hand, because no one does it. So some students like that, others do not. But that's how I teach it. And in the end, based off my student feedback on the end of the course evaluations, students in the first week gripe a lot about this project. But by the end, when they actually submit it, I get a lot of positive feedback that they learned more from doing their project than they learned on any test that I gave them. So I understand the anxiety of the project right now, but I have a feeling if you put in the effort, you will learn way more about statistical analysis doing your project on something that you're interested in, instead of me making you do hand calculations.
I'm over the moon right now. Just thought I'd say that.
Yes, there's a lot. And that's, I know.
That's great. No handwritten anything. This is fantastic.
Yes. I will do some by hand, but we are going to use technology. Just very similar to the QR class, right? You did the projects in the QR, so very similar to that. Just it's a little more in depth than the QR projects. The QR projects were smaller projects. This one's a little more complex, but you did extremely well with those projects, so I am confident you'll do extremely well with these ones as well. So grades, I think we've got pretty much down now. There is some confusion with this course with my grades, all right? Please only look at your grades under grades, right? There is an issue because I give you options. If you go to assignments, this is where people submit book problems. If you do Pearson, the assignment section is going to tell you that you are late and you've earned 0 points. Please, 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 I know it's hard not to, but please ignore this. It has no effect on your grade. If you are doing Pearson and you never even click on this tab, you'll never see it anyway. Grades is built correctly that it will pull from either one. It will either pull your Pearson grade or it will pull your homework assignment grade. It will not pull from both. So you're not going to end up getting a 0. So a lot of times my students start emailing me around after homework 1 and saying, I have a 0. You do not have a 0. Well, you may if you did no homework, right? But then you want to be emailing me because you know all you have is 0. But if you've completed an assignment and you go somewhere and see you have a 0, check your grades. If your grades say you have a 0, then please email me because there is an issue. But if you've done Pearson, it'll pull from Pearson and go right to your grades. If you submitted it through assignments, it'll pull from assignments and go right to your grade. So always check grades. So you can see right now it's blank because I haven't done anything. If you submitted your quiz and I've given you feedback, which I have done for most of you, you should see your quiz grade already posted on your Brightspace. And you can see I haven't pulled the assignments into homework 1 yet because no one's done any, so there's nothing to pull. But as we do assignments, your assignments will also populate in here. I don't know why it's showing 2 quiz grades, so I'll figure that mistake out as well. But you can see there's your project intro in Excel for 75 points, and then your project final write-up for 125. And there is 2 exams. Exam 1 will be over chapters 4 and 5. Exam 2 will be over chapters 6, 7, and 8. And then your projects will cover chapters 1 through 3. And then your final project covers as well as 6, 7, and 8. So that is kind of the grade breakdown. And if you want to see the percentages, you can see that was in syllabus. Communications, this is where you can chat. You can see our class list. And again, this is where you can click on the Zoom meetings to get to the Zoom thing. As you can see, today's has already started, 1 o'clock. And these will all stay on here so you can see. If we do change it for some reason, we will. But this is where you go to get to the Zoom link. All right. Half hour into course and we finished talking Brightspace. And that was a lot. I do understand that.
It's not going to mess you up if we do both Pearson, like for practice,
nope.
And we do the, because I've already started the Pearson, like practicing.
No, I have students who switch halfway through. I have students who'll do 1 in Pearson and then the next one in the book problems. I have students who do both. I give you the highest of the 2 grades.
Awesome.
Yep.
And I did want to say too, don't look at your grade. This is my course from last semester. Don't look at your app either because it shows a bunch of Fs, which stay there.
Oh,
if you
yes.
Look at your grades.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't freak out like I did. I was,
Yes, I've had a few from QR already email me about that too. I don't know what Hawks is. I've tried to stop it from updating. It continually updates. I've turned off updating from my future QR courses because, yeah, the automatic update from Hawks turned into be a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yes, all my students from the fall are currently failing Hawks. It's annoying. I've turned it off for this semester, but unfortunately I can't seem to stop it for the last semester. All right, so we talked quiz, assignments, requirements, Zoom, email, perfect. So calculators, I always get that question, what calculator should I buy, right? I don't have a preference. I will tell you this, cell phones for this course will be the death of you, all right? I get students all the time, I love to use my cell phone, great. When we get to probability and you start doing permutation and combination problems, your cell phone is gonna destroy you. So buy a calculator, all right? It's gonna make your life extremely easy. And the 2 calculators I am recommending are all based on price. Has nothing to do with preference or what's better than the other, right? If you have a scientific calculator, great. Oh, I probably need to reshare. Can you see the calculator?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I don't have to reshare. All right, so this is one that I really like. It's a Casio FX300 ES Plus. I haven't looked recently, but it was at Walmart when I bought it for $8. So definitely less than a $20 calculator, right? So can you see my little mouse finger here?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
So no matter what calculator you have, the keys I need you to look for this course is above the X key, the multiplication key, you see this little thing that says NPR and NCR. Those 2 keys, if you don't have this calculator, just make sure your calculator has it. That is for counting problems, which we will get into. This little X with an exclamation point is called factorial. That is another key that we'll use a lot in this course. There is a way to do statistical analysis with this calculator. I don't really teach it, but it is in there if you want to use it. But this is a really good calculator. This has actually become my favorite calculator, even though I said I wasn't going to give preferences. And just the reason for that is because of this key right here is a quick, easy way to do fractions. We're going to do lots of fractions in this class. And I'm sorry if you don't like them, but unfortunately, statistics is based on probability, and probability is based on decimals and fractions. So therefore, almost every single problem we do is a fraction. So if you do not like fractions, then I would definitely make sure you have a calculator that can calculate fractions really easy, and this calculator does. And that's why I like this calculator, because when you type things into it, it looks just like it does on the paper, right? And that's what this key will do for you. So nice, easy calculator. This will do anything you need to be done in any math class in college. Even if you go up to calculus, this will cover everything. So you do not need to go ever buy an expensive calculator. I actually prefer students not to it, because if you do get to advanced math, they take your fancy calculator away anyway. So this is a good calculator to use, and it's cheap. Another calculator I always recommend is the TI-30X. This is the calculator I started with. This is the one they sell in the bookstore. And this is an extremely good calculator as well. And the key that has, notice there is no NPR and NCR key on this calculator. However, all those keys, all those functions are listed under the PRB key. So this does have everything you need as well. It's just listed under the probability key. So that does it. And then this ABC key is how you do fractions on this calculator. So the two keys right next to each other will be extremely helpful. A lot of students like to use the divide key to make fraction, but your calculator always turns it into a decimal. If you use the ABC key, it will keep it as a fraction. So those are the two calculators I recommend. They're both about 20 bucks. If you have a TI-84, right? Great. You know, they work amazingly well. I don't really go into them. I will help you if you get it, but they're expensive and they're not necessary for our class. But if you have one, then of course you can use it. But those, so there's my calculators thing. All right, how are we doing on time? Lots of yammering today.
You'd say the Casio is probably the easiest to use, though, correct?
I don't think there's really a difference, honestly, between the Casio and the Texas. The one thing that gives the Casio the upper hand is when you type things into your Casio, the Casio does really good at making it look like it just does on the paper, while the Texas kind of puts sometimes a funky symbol in it at times, which is maybe something you're just not used to seeing. So that is probably the only difference between the Casio and the Texas. The Casio, right, like so if you have to do exponents, this is the X with a little box right here. So when you type it in your calculator, it'll actually show up as like 3 with a squared on it, right? Versus the Texas will put what I call this little, oh, I went past the Texas one, so let me go back. You use this little caret key to do exponents. And so when you put it into your calculator, instead of showing it as X squared, it's going to show you X with this little key too. So that is the biggest difference between the two calculators. One shows more math symbols, while the Casio shows just like it does in the problem. All right, last little piece before we actually start going into the material. If you log into your Office 365, so all you do is go to Office 365, use your student email and your student password, and you can get into Office 365. Everybody gets Office 365 for free. And then when you get into Office 365, you get all the free Microsoft apps. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, which is what we're going to talk about here in a minute, as well as you can access your email. So if you go into Office 365 and type it into your web browser, sign in, this is what you'll get popped up, and you can have a bunch of documents like I do here. The reason I'm talking about this is you get this little tab right here to say install Office. Everybody gets Office for free as a student. And if you click on this, you can actually either use the apps or you can download it and install it on your computer. I highly, highly, highly encourage you to install it on your computer. There is going to be functions in Excel that we will use that are not available to you in app form, right? And what I mean by using app form is if you come and click on the Excel here, it's going to open it as a web app. If you use the install Office and you put it on your computer, you'll actually have Microsoft Office installed on your computer for free. All right, I highly encourage everyone to do this because we will be using Excel to do a lot of things in chapters 2 and 3. We'll take a break from Excel for chapters 4 and 5 and 6. You really won't need it, but if you get comfortable with it, it'll make your life easier, but not required. But you're definitely gonna need it for your projects. So everyone needs to have Excel, and everyone should have a computer because it's now required by the college. If you don't, then you can come on campus and use the computers in the Learning Commons, or if you're a TRIO student, you can come into TRIO and use the computers as well. But you're going to want a decent computer to be able to do your projects. But this is how you get it for free, right? And all of you get it for free, so make sure you use this method to get it. And the reason you want to have access to OneNote is because if you get your OneNote built and you use that link I sent you, it will bring you to here, and you have all of my lecture notes for the entire semester. And I will be adding to these throughout the semester. And what you can do is you can't edit my OneNote, hopefully I set that up correctly, but you can download these to your OneNote, and then you can edit them. So you can type up your own notes and have digital copies and give yourself whatever for information you want. So you can download them if you want. You can print them if you're a paper person and stuff, completely up to you. But everyone will have access to them. And I will basically be teaching off of these since we're in Zoom settings. And going through them all. So you can see all of our chapters, all the notes are already in there, and I will add to them throughout the semester and write examples kind of next to them. So even if you download all of them today, you'll probably want to update them as we go through, unless you want to take notes. The tests are open book and open note. So I highly encourage everyone to do these notes, because the answers to the test will be on these notes. So at a minimum, even if you don't like to read the textbook, please read the lecture notes, because that's where I pull this information from. If you have difficulties getting to this, please reach out to me so I can assist you. But I sent you an email yesterday with a link that should bring you right into the OneNote, into my OneNotes. Questions? Go ahead.
Sorry, can we request a paper copy again for the exam?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So because the math software is optional, not everyone will have access to it unless you bought the code. So yes, you can request a paper copy when we get to the exams. And there will be a practice exam for studying purposes, and then an actual exam. The practice exam, even though it will show up as an assignment in Pearson, it is not graded. It doesn't count for anything. You don't have to do it. I would highly encourage you to do it, because it'll help you prepare for the test, but it's not required. And then, yes, if you want a paper copy, then you just need to email me, and then I will send you a PDF, which you can either do on the computer, print it, and then rescan it back to me, drop it off on campus if you're near campus, because I'm here every day. Completely up to you. We'll talk about that closer to the test time, but yes, you may request a paper copy. Any other questions administratively, as we took the first 40 minutes of class just to make sure we talk through it. It is important. That's why I'm recording this. So you can always go back, because like Jenny said, I am giving you a lot of information right now and maybe a little overwhelmed, but no, I did record this. So you can kind of go back and see where all these resources are available. I can tell you this, for anyone that's very nervous right now, I have never had a student fail my class that has put in the effort. Now, do I have students who fail my class? Yes. Unfortunately, I had more people fail my class this fall than I have all my years teaching combined. But that was just students who just stopped attending the Zooms. They didn't submit any work, and I had a lot of students who didn't even take the second test, right? If you don't do the work, I can't help you, right? But if you ask questions, turn in every single assignment, doesn't even have to be perfect, right? I've had students in the past who failed every single test and still passed the course. That's why I give you so many options to show me what you know, right? I give you tests. For people who don't like tests, you have your homeworks, right? I have projects to show you information, right? So for my writers and stuff, they like this, right? They might hate math, but they can write a good paper. So I give you lots of opportunities to show that you know the material. And if you are making the effort, I will do everything to assist you. But if you're not emailing me, you're not attending the Zooms, you know, email me, tell me if you watch my Zooms, and then, you know, you're not turning in the assignments, and there's not much I can do for you, because I need something to help build. So that's the key. Do every single assignment. Does not have to be perfect. And that way I can assist where you're stuck. So that's my best advice to you. There is tutoring available. If you are a TRIO student, we have statistics tutoring. If you're not a TRIO student, I highly encourage you to apply to be a TRIO student. So TRIO, if you don't know what it is, just reach out to me and I can send you some more information. But if you're not a TRIO student or not interested in applying to be a TRIO student, the Math Science Center also offers free tutoring. When I post this week's announcement, I will post a Excel file with the announcement showing tutoring available through the Math Science Center. So if you log into your CM Connect and go to students, there is a tutoring tab, and that's how you schedule tutoring through the Math Science Center. If you're a TRIO student, then email TRIO and they will get you a tutor. So that's my little spiel on tutoring. Use it. It's free, right? No matter which one you use, it is free. It's an additional resource. Even if you just use your tutor to just work on problems and have someone there to help you, it's perfect. So chapter 1 is a very boring chapter. It's all definitions. And so I have most of it all written right here. And you can see there's not a lot of information that we're going to cover today. So that's a good thing. And it's all here. So you don't have to memorize anything, right? I don't believe in memorization. I know some of my instructors do, and we kind of bicker back and forth about the importance of it. I don't believe in it because no one uses it no more. I've done statistical analysis in the real world. No one's asked me ever to do something from memory, as well as no one has ever asked me to solve this equation in the real world. Right, so this is why I do not teach math this way. And like I said, some of my students like it. And I know that because some of you are repeat students of mine, not for the same class, but for different ones. So I teach my math classes of how math's done in the real world, right? And so how do we do math in the real world? Well, we take a real problem and we apply mathematics to solve it. And that's what statistics is. Statistics is we take a problem in the world and we get some data, and then we use that data to help us make an informed decision of how to attack the problem. And you want to see some statistical analysis, all you have to do is turn the TV on for 10 seconds and you'll see statistics everywhere. And the problem with statistics is the calculations of statistics are very straightforward. It's some basic arithmetic. So there is no crazy algebra in this course, calculus, any of that, difficult mathematics as some refer to. It is basic arithmetic. We are going to do a lot of adding things, subtracting things, multiplying and dividing things. Probably the hardest thing for our calculations in this class is that most everything's a decimal or a fraction, but we get calculators. I will show you how to overcome that fear. But so it's not the calculations that make statistics hard. It is the terminology, right? And what I have found in years past, and I know most of you have told me this before, that you hear all the horror stories of statistics, but I hear all the positives of it. I've had students I've tutored and helped take algebra, and they have hated algebra. And they've taken statistics and they have loved it, right? It is a different type of math. It is a different type of thinking. So just because you don't like algebra doesn't mean you will not like statistics, and vice versa. I've had students who love algebra, love calculus, and hated statistics, right? And the problem with statistics is there's more than one way to solve a problem. And there's more than one way that is correct. Well, there's plenty of ways that are wrong, but there's more than one way that's correct. So a lot of my students who love algebra and calculus, why they get frustrated with statistics is they want me to show them that one way that always works. In algebra and calculus, there is, hey, if you do these 4 steps and you do these 4 steps correctly every single time, you will always get the right answer. It doesn't work that way in statistics. You have to understand what's going on, who are you doing the analysis on, and that's where the definitions come into play. And in all honesty, to me, not again to scare anybody, but to just let people know what I've noticed as a pattern in this course. By the time I get to chapter 6, my students who are really still struggling and cannot make sense of anything, it's because they didn't grasp chapter 1. By the time we get to chapter 6, most students have the definitions down, they got the terminology down, and now it is just using different formulas, and the course seems to become way much easier, and everyone seems to really start enjoying the class. So it really does come down to this chapter. And what's important in this chapter is this table that I have here. So I would, if you are writing notes down, I would put this in my notes, tab it, highlight it, color it, whatever you want to do. This is the entire course in one table, all right? And of course, you always have access to this. You don't have to write it down, but know where to go, right? Because these are things I'm going to ask you over and over and over again. And as I said, you do not have to have anything memorized, by chapter 6, you should have this table memorized. Not that you had to sit there and study it to memorize it, but because I've asked you the question so many times, you're tired of hearing the question, you've actually got it memorized by now, right? So we're going to talk this so much that if you're paying attention, it's almost impossible not to have this thing memorized. So, questions before we start to dive into what these definitions are telling us? All right. So data, right? And I even put some page numbers for my few of you who actually will open your textbook this semester. And so this goes back to my wonderful course evaluations at the end, where I have students tell me that we never use the book. We use the book every lesson. The issue is I've pulled out the key pieces. So you may not have opened the book, but I promise you we're using the book. So these page numbers are where you can go to get more details on these if what I have listed here is not sufficient enough. So data, right? Data is just that. It is just observations, right? It is can be quantitative, which means numbers, or it can be qualitative or sometimes called categorical, which is words, right? And so data can be words. And an example of that is degrees, right? Every one of you is getting a degree at Central Maine, right? Your degree is not a number, right? You're nursing, general studies, business, precision machining, culinary, right? That is still considered data, but that is qualitative data, categorical. It is a name, right? So there is ways to do analysis with that data. We are not going to learn it in this course because this is an intro statistics course, but there is statistics courses out there that teach you how to do statistical analysis of categorical or qualitative data. And this is why it's extremely important for the project. You need quantitative data. You'd need numbers, right? So some example of data for numbers, people's ages, people's height, people's weight, GPAs, you know, if you're doing sports, you know, touchdowns, points scored, basketball, you know, free throw percentages, all kinds of stuff, right? So there's lots of data out there. That is not the issue anymore in our society, right? Because of the internet and computers and technology. Data is everywhere. And right now, honestly, the big problem is how do we deal with what we call big data? And that's, again, beyond the scope of our class, but that's what most companies and statistical people that are doing analysis are struggling with, is how do you do analysis when you can get data so quickly and then it changes so often. So if you feel like getting a statistics degree, that's a problem you can solve. So that's all data is, right? And so that is the key piece to your project. Everyone is going to collect some data, and you need to have 50 points or more. If there's some problems, it could be less than 50. So if you have that problem where you can't get 50 points, reach out to me. We can talk to see if that is an option or not. But you want your data to make sure it is numbers. And statistics is the studies, organizing, summarizing, presenting, analyzing, and interpreting data, and then drawing a conclusion, hence your papers. You're going to get some data, you're going to do some analysis, you're going to build some cool graphs, and then you're going to come to a conclusion. And that is what your project's based on. So you are all going to do some minor statistical analysis on whatever data set that you decide to use. And we'll do plenty of practice problems. So when it comes time to you do yours, you'll be confident in your calculation ability, but every one of you will get a different answer. And you can do your projects in groups. I know it's probably hard online and with COVID, but if you're with a student, maybe in another class, and you like working together and you want to do groups, that is completely fine with me. A population is a complete collection of data, right? And I like to think of a population basically of infinite size. It's basically unmeasurable. There is populations out there that are measurable, but very rare. Most of them are immeasurable because they're either way too big or they keep changing. Right? The easy example for me to use is the human population, right? We have no idea how many people are on this planet. And we can't even count them if we wanted to, because every second Someone is being born and someone is dying, right? So the population is constantly changing. And since it's constantly changing, it is immeasurable, right? And so since we can't measure it, what we then do is we have two options. We can do a census, which is what we do in the United States, which we actually just finished doing. We'll be interested to see how well it turned out because of everything that went on in 2020. But a census is an attempt to actually collect data of a population, right? And so in the United States, we actually try to find out how many people are in this country. And it is the greatest effort that we put in. I highly doubt we talk to every single person that is standing on US soil. So even though a census is an attempt to talk to everything in the population, it still typically falls short. Well, and it's very expensive and it's very time consuming. That's why in the United States, we do it every 10 years. What most of the times we will do is we would do a sample, right? And that is what you will do for your project. So you will take a small subset or a sub collection of data from a population, right? And so our sample size in this case is 50 or more, right? So we'll have 50 data points. Data is our sample. Parameter is calculations based on the population. A statistic is calculations based on the sample. So what you're going to notice in this course, a lot of things are just that. Are you doing analysis on a population or are you doing analysis on a statistic, right? And I think that is probably the first important piece of this class. What we need to start gaining is a good understanding of what is a population and what is a sample. Because when you're solving your problems, that is the first thing you should be asking yourself. Am I dealing with the population or am I dealing with a sample? Right? And by knowing those, we'll let you know what type of analysis to do. All right. And so with these concepts, with population and sample, we're going to do some concepts. And so we can calculate the mean, which is just the average, which most of you know how to do already, right? How do we find the average of something? You take all the points, you add them together, divide by how many you have. Well, that is actually the sample mean. And we'll talk way more about that in chapter 3. And that is represented by the symbol X with a bar on it. So X bar is the sample mean. The mu, which looks like a U with a longer tail, is a Greek symbol. It's mu, MU. That is the symbol for population mean. So when we start getting into formulas, you're going to see both of these symbols in the formula. And if you know what the symbol represents, then you know what number to put in the formula and you can solve the problem. If you do not know what the symbol represents, then you're going to have no idea what number to put in the formula and you're going to be extremely frustrated and stuck, right? And this is where I start talking about chapter 6. Students really starting to get frustrated because they don't know these symbols. And again, you don't have to have it memorized. Just make sure you have this table handy so you can look what these symbols mean. The variance is represented by a sigma, which looks like a O with a tail on the top of it, squared. That is the symbol for the population that's called sigma squared, versus S squared, which stands for S, and that is our sample variance. And they're both squared, which just means that I take those values and I multiply them by themselves. Proportion is represented by a P, and then if you're for the population, and if you're doing a sample proportion, that is P with a little hat on it. So you get P and P hat. Standard deviation is related to variance. So it's the same symbols, just one has a squared, one doesn't. Don't stress if you don't know what these are yet. We will go deep into what they are in chapter 3. And then we have size. Capital N represents the size of the population. Little n represents the size of the sample. And what statistics does for us, the whole point of this class in a nutshell, is how close are these things to being the same? That is what statistics is. All right, and that's what we're going to learn how to prove once we get into chapters 6 on, right? Is our sample mean a good representation of the population mean? Is our sample variance a good representation of the population variance, right? So that is the point of statistics. Since the population is either too big to count everybody, so therefore I can't calculate these parameters, because remember, parameters are calculations of the population. Well, the next best thing I can do is collect some data and find my sample statistics and then discuss if the two are related, right? And that's what we will cover in this course. So basically this table is the entire 15 weeks. Now, obviously we're gonna go way more in detail, but this is where we begin. So I noticed I did skip something here. Discrete versus continuous. I do not like the book answers, so I do not even put them on here. And I understand what the author's saying, but to me, I think it's way more confusing. He makes his definitions extremely confusing what's discrete and continuous. In simplest terms, discrete is a whole number and continuous is a real number, right? And if you don't remember what a whole number and real number is from previous math classes, whole numbers are how we count, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those are whole numbers. Real numbers are every other number, right? They are the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they are also the numbers 1/2, 2/3, 3.17. So decimals, fractions, that's continuous. What it comes down to is we're going to take things and we're going to get into what we call events, which we get into more into chapter 4. But all an event is, what are you looking for? So if you take what you're looking for and you can divide it by 2 and it still makes sense, then that is continuous. If I have an event and I divide it by 2 and it does not make sense, then that is discrete, right? And so what I mean by that is, if I am counting people, right? This is what I'm counting. I'm counting people. Discrete or continuous? That's a question if I still have students in the class.
What did you say? I was writing still about the dividing by 2 to continue.
If
What was the question?
If I'm counting people, is that considered a discrete or continuous?
I would probably say continuous because it's always changing.
So notice in our definitions, there's nothing about changing, right?
It's real numbers. Oh, I guess it would. You said it can divide by 2, right?
Right. So can I take a person and cut them in half? No.
No.
No, not if we're counting them, right? I can't have a half a person when I'm counting people, right? You're either there or you're not. So since I can't, half a person does not make sense. So does not make sense.
Which I never understood the census, because they always say that families are what, 2.5, or you know what I mean? They always say like a half a person.
Right. So
children.
that gets us into chapter 5. And the reason they do that is we don't round when we're calculating parameter values. And the reason we don't round is because we use those parameter values in formulas. And if we round them, it throws our overall answer off. So that's where we come into that when they're saying like, hey, the average family has 1.2 children, right? And the reason we don't round, because if I say the average person has 1 child, then that means everybody has exactly 1 child. But because we have some that have 0 children, we have some that have way more than 1 child. And so that's why we don't round. Because when you say something as accurate as that, people take it literal, right? And that's why when we even get in percentages, I will tell you to always go to 1 decimal place. Because say I have 49.8%, and right? So I'll come back to this, why this is discrete in a minute. But say I have 49.8% and you decide you want to round that to 50%, right? So say we round up to 50%. The problem in statistics, if something's 50%, then that's saying that it is the equally likely that it's 50-50, right? However, if I have 49.8%, then that is not, there is a little more advantage to the other piece, because that would be 50.2%. So it's not 50-50. So that's why rounding gets things in statistical analysis wrong a lot. And a lot of times people just round because they understand rounding rules, but they don't understand the consequences of it when you do analysis, right? So that's my issue with statistics, is because the calculations, again, if I ever use the word easy, I'm not trying to say it's easy. I'm just saying that The calculations aren't bad. It's add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So a lot of people are like, oh, I can do statistical analysis because I can do the arithmetic. It's not the math that makes stats hard. It is interpreting the results that makes stats hard, right? So that's where we don't like to round things. But when we're talking events and we're looking at how we're counting things like people, I cannot have a half a person. It doesn't make sense. So counting people is discrete. I can have 0 people. I can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it does go on forever. So that's why a lot of people like to say continuous. But continuous doesn't mean how long it goes. Continuous just means continuous is, can I keep making the numbers smaller and smaller? When I count things as discrete, I cannot make the numbers smaller. They are what they are. Continuous, I can. I can take things and make them smaller. So an example of that is if I am counting how tall someone is. And say I am counting in feet, right? How tall someone is in feet. Is that discrete or continuous?
It'd be considered continuous.
It'd be considered continuous, right? And the reason it can be considered continuous is because I can have 6.5 feet, right? Well, helps if I can spell continuous. 6.5 feet, right? And this is why I don't like the author's definition. So if you actually go look up his definitions, he says something that is discrete that is measurable and continuous is immeasurable, right? Can everybody still hear me? I just got a weird alert on my computer.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yep.
It said my sound wave stopped working. So I was like, what? And that's why I don't like his definitions, because he makes it sound like discrete is a finite size and there's a stopping point. Well, if I'm counting people, there is no stopping point, right? Because we already said that that population keeps changing. So the number can never stop if it keeps changing. So therefore, by his definition, people would say, well, that's not discrete then. No, discrete is, I can't have a half of something. I can't break it down any smaller. So that's why I came up with this cool trick of dividing things by 2. If I take what I'm looking for and I divide it by 2 and it makes sense, then it is continuous. If I divide it by 2 and it does not make sense, it's discrete. Counting people, discrete. Counting cars, I can't have a half a car, discrete. But even though I said, hey, we're sticking to feet, people are like, well, that's continuous because you said it has to be 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot. No, I just said it has to be in feet. I can say something is 6.5 feet, right? So therefore it is continuous. Do not confuse rounding with discrete or continuous. Just because the problem says round to a whole number doesn't make that thing continuous, right? I mean, discrete, sorry. It doesn't make it discrete just because the rules say you have to round it. Rounding has nothing to do with discrete or continuous. Discrete or continuous comes down to, does it make sense to cut it in half? And the reason I'm harping on this so much is not just so for chapter 1. Chapter 5 is how we solve discrete problems. Chapter 6 is how do we solve continuous problems. If you know if your problem is discrete or continuous, then you know what chapter to go look for and what formulas to use. The formulas are different for discrete populations than they are for continuous. Knowing these terms helps you pick the right formula, right? And if you don't know the terms, then you may not pick the right formula. So that's kind of the importance of these terms. Questions before we move on? Okay, so a few more concepts here. I think we'll get through them all. And if we don't, and if I'm going too fast, tell me. I can slow down too, because we're doing fine on time. So levels of measurement. This is how we measure our data, right? And so our data can be measured in 4 different categories. It can be nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. And nominal is the easiest. Nominal is categorical data again, words, names, labels, categorical. Our class roster, students in this class right now, is categorical data, right? So anytime you have categorical data, that's nominal. So that's the easiest of the levels of measurement because it's either that or it's not. Ordinal, interval, and ratio are all based on numbers, and there is just small differences between the two, right? So I'm going to focus on the differences versus exactly what they are, right? Because that's going to kind of help know what they are. So If it's a number, you have to have ordinal, interval, or ratio. So something that makes things ordinal. It can be arranged in an order, but when you subtract the numbers, it does not make any sense, right? And that's the problem with statistics, right? We can do this analysis even with Excel, right? We'll go into Excel and we'll get Excel to do calculations. Excel is never going to flash on the screen and ask you, whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you sure you've checked that we can do this? It's just going to do it for you, right? Just like your calculator. So understanding your data, make sure that you do things right. So ordinal means the things cannot be subtracted. Now, mathematically, can they be subtracted? Yes. So the example I always like to use is months of the year, right? So if I take December, right, which is the 12th month, and I subtract October, which is the 10th month, I get the value of 2. Well, December subtract October does not equal February, right? So the months of the year are ordinal data, because though I can technically subtract them because the rules of arithmetic, it doesn't make statistical sense. So months of the year are ordinal. Another example of ordinal data, your student ID numbers, right? If I take my ID number and I subtract Trisha's ID number, I don't create a new student, right? So subtracting our two ID numbers makes no sense. So our student ID numbers are ordinal. Social Security numbers, ordinal. Subtracting one Social Security from another Social Security number doesn't create something new. Doesn't make any sense. That is considered ordinal data. Interval. Our data can be arranged. All numbers can be arranged. That's why I don't focus on that. But the difference does have meaning. So now subtracting the numbers does make sense. So what makes interval interesting is when you get the value 0. In interval, 0 means something, right? In math, 0 means nothing. There's nothing there, right? Interval means 0 means something other than nothing. And the easiest example to talk about that is temperature. When it is 0 degrees outside, that does not mean there's no temperature. It means it's cold, right? So that is something that's interval, is when 0 means something else. Ratio means 0 means nothing, right? So like I can have 0 inches for someone's height. Now, yes, it doesn't make sense because that means that person doesn't exist because you can't be 0 inches tall, but 0 does mean nothing at that point, right? Because if someone's 0 inches tall, that means they do not exist. That means there is nothing there, which by definition is what 0 means. So heights are ratio. Any questions on the levels of measurement? All right. Observational study versus experiment. So this is one of the requirements for the project, right? And for you all, almost every, I'll give you the answer to your project question right now. For almost all of you, your answer is going to be observational. Because an observational study means that you collect some data and you do analysis on it, and you do not influence the data, right? You observe what the numbers are telling you, but you do not affect them. Do not get this confused with bias and errors. We'll talk about errors here in a minute, but observational study is just that. You get some data and you're going to observe what the results are. So an example, I go to Central Station on campus and I decide that I want to I want to sit there on a little bench and just count how many students go and order something from Central Station, right? I'm not telling people when they come by like, hey, you can't order here, go away, right? I'm just counting, or whatever analysis I'm doing on Central Station. I'm observing what's happened. That is an observational study. An experiment is when you do influence it. And the few things that this actually applies to, the medical, right? Perfect example from right now, the COVID vaccine, right? Some people got the COVID vaccine while we're in the research trials and some did not. They were controlling who got what to see the effects of the vaccine. That is an experiment. Experiments are mostly done in the medical field, or someone in manufacturing is building something. You're going to have something do something, and you're going to have control what it does or does not do to see if what the results are. that is an experiment. You have some effect. You're putting in controls versus observational study that you're just collecting data and doing some analysis and you're not putting any controls in. Any questions on those two? All right. Sampling, types of sampling. I try to break these definitions down a little bit simpler than what the author uses. Again, you can go to page 28 and read more if you want a more in-depth look. But sampling, the easiest one, the way I like to think of random sampling, sometimes random sample if everything has the same chance of being selected. That's the easiest thing, way I like to look at it, right? Picking people, if it is truly random, everything that you're picking has the same chance to be picked. That makes something random. And then to help us be random, there is some types of ways to do sampling, and that's where we talk about these other types. So systematic is you start at some point, then you select every case, right? And what that means here, oops, I'm still in draw. So again, I'm back at Central Station. Trying to go back to so I can move my box here. There we go. I'm back at Central Station. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask every 5th person that orders a question, right? That is systematic. So I go knowing like, hey, I don't have time to talk to everybody. Plus I don't want to hold up the line. So what I'll do is every 5th person I'll ask, why did you use Central Station today, right? Or how often do you come here and order? So that's systematic. You pick a number, and they say case in the book because you can pick any number. But once you pick that number, you stay with it, right? I'll pick every 5th person, every 10th person, every 8th person. It doesn't matter as long as you stick to that routine. That's systematic. Convenience is what most of you are going to do for your projects. It is data that is easy to collect. It's convenient, right? Surveys. So it really just comes down to things that are simple. Surveys are easy. Now they're not the best, but they, you know. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, this is easy to collect. That's the easiest way to look at convenience. I have to much more into that. Stratified and clustered are very similar, right? So both of them says you take the population and you divide them into groups, right? Based on some characteristic. Stratified is once you get them into groups, you talk to every group, right? Cluster is you put everybody into groups and then you pick the specific groups to talk to, right? So an example of these two, so I'll put example by this, and I'll put example by this. So if you go back and look at my notes later. All right, so we talked to all the students that come to CMCC on campus, right? And then we separate it by year group. So we can say, hey, if you're first year, go to Jailbert Auditorium. If you're second year, go to Kirk Auditorium. If you're third year student, go to the gymnasium. If you're a 4th year student or beyond, go to classroom, Jailbert 501. That's a big classroom, right? And so all the students go to their specialist places. So we've broken everyone into groups by year group, right? 1st through 4th. Then if I'm doing stratified, I take a sample from each group, right? So let's put this, so this is our scenario. So stratified, this is, we randomly pick students from each group. So what a thing we could do is before they get there, we put a little, tape on their seat. And then all the students come and they sit down. And then we say, hey, if you have a red piece of tape on your seat, please stay, everyone else can leave, right? Because we're not talking to everybody. We're going to do a sample from each group. That's stratified. While cluster is we have everybody separate and then we say, all right, we're going to talk to only first years and second years. So if you go to either the auditorium, stay, everybody in the gym says, you can go home. Everybody that went to Jailbert 501, you can go home. So that's cluster. We're talking to only the first and second years. All right, so we divided everybody into groups, but then picked only 2 of the groups to talk to. A volunteer response is when the subjects decide if they will participate or not. This is surveys. So it is also convenience and it's also volunteer. And you're right, you think about surveys, that's why surveys can be good or bad. Just think of even our school, we do the end of the course evaluations. We have never had every single student in the class do them because they are volunteer responses. So we try to give incentives to get students to do them, but that doesn't mean students are going to actually do it, right? So that's a volunteer response. So the last thing to talk about is types of errors. And then I don't go much into this because it's really hard to kind of know what type of error you've done, but there is some definitions and they're on page 31, so we'll kind of cover them. So a sampling error is when a sample is done random, but the results differ from what the true population results should be, right? And so that's a sampling error. We're not sure why it has happened, but something has caused our results to be different from what they should be. A non-sampling error is the person doing the analysis made the mistake, right? So somehow they did something wrong to cause the data to be biased. And there's lots of examples of that. Exit polls for elections, they always have non-sampling errors, human error of why they work or do not work. Non-random sampling error is when the sampling method is not random, right? Basically convenience of volunteer. That is the problem with exit polls. And where the exit polls are typically always wrong in elections is not everybody does an exit poll, right? You come out, someone says, hey, you want to do an exit poll? You say sure, or you say no, right? So they're volunteer, so they cause sampling errors, non-random, because they're not random. The only people that want to do a exit poll are the people that want to participate in an exit poll because they want to share their opinions, which causes it to be misleading and what we call a non-random sampling error. And you can ignore the last piece of that because that's what I use when we do this article in class. But since we can't all come together, we never have enough people attend the Zoom, I didn't bother doing the article. So covered a lot today. A lot of definitions, went through the concept of the class and how to navigate everything. But we're right on schedule. So you can start on chapter 1 homework if you choose to. Start thinking about your projects. Make sure you're comfortable with Brightspace. Make a decision, right? If you want to use Pearson, make sure you have the code. If you still are indifferent and you don't know you want it, you can always request temporary access and you get 2 weeks of Pearson for free when you set up your account. And that way you can kind of see which way you like before you go buy the code if you haven't bought it yet. But again, completely up to you. I have no preference which homework you do, books or Pearson. Is 100% up to you which one you choose to do. I don't have a fight. It's just make sure you do one. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing and then stop recording, and then I'll see if anyone has any questions.